Coming up, can blind people solve the Rubik's Cube?
You're listening to Double Tap, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Stephen Scott and Shaun Preece.
Hey guys, welcome along to another episode of Double Tap. I am Stephen Scott, and I was really excited earlier in the week when Shaun was feeling better. He was shouting at me and yelling at me, and we were having a big discussion about Meta and WhatsApp and all that carry on. And, he was feeling a little better. Sadly, though, he's not feeling so great today. So he's going to take a couple of days off. I had to kind of force him to take a couple of days off, to be honest. I think he was going to try and be here. And I was like, you know what, Shaun, you're really not looking or sounding good today. So I think you need to take a bit of a break and just rest up and get well. So, yes, forced rest is what he is on. I'm sure he's going to love that. But, you know what? Sometimes you got to. You got to look after your health. So he has taken some time off, well-deserved, and he'll be back with us, all going well, on Monday. But nothing to fear. He's absolutely fine. He just needs a couple of days just to rest up, and then he will be back with us again, fighting fit and yelling at me. Can't wait. But listen, it's not a Shaunless show today, because we are going to be speaking later with Paul Martz. Shaun and I actually caught up with him earlier this week to learn all about his book that he's written called Solve It. It's a book that is to help blind people solve the Rubik's Cube. Yeah, the Rubik's Cube. I mean, it's funny. I never, ever thought that's something I could even get involved in, right? I mean, even when I had more vision, I was still colorblind, so I still couldn't play the Rubik's Cube even when I was younger. So it was never really something I was ever going to get into. But he has been really working hard on this, and he's found organizations and companies that are actually creating tactile Rubik's Cubes. So you're going to hear about that. And also his book, which you'll be able to get access to. It's very cheap, very easy to get hold of. And we'll tell you all the details. Paul Martz coming up on his book, Solve It. And we're going to talk about a host of other things as well, because he's a bit of a Mac fan like I am, which displeases Shaun no end. So, Shaun may not be with us today and tomorrow, but he is here in spirit today with our interview with Paul Martz coming up. So looking forward to that. But we're going to get into a couple of emails. And I've picked out some specific emails today because there's a lot of emails that are aimed at Shaun or aimed at me or aimed at both of us. And I've picked out ones that, I can hopefully answer for you today. So let's get right in. And Kevin is up first with a question.
Headphones and the Mantis Q40. Was there a pair of headphones that you like to use with your Mantis Q40? I love the show. Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. It's a great question. And there is actually. And they're not particularly expensive, which sounds like I'm turning into Shaun Preece. The thing is, for me, it's not about buying expensive earbuds. It's about buying ones that have got the least amount of Bluetooth latency or lag. What you don't want to do is be pressed the letter A on the keyboard and then, 3 months later you hear A in your earbuds, right? I am exaggerating slightly. But, even half a second, even a second delay can just feel like too much, especially when you're typing fast or you're trying to read through something or you're arrowing through a menu. Especially, and I have seen this before, where, you arrow to something on a Braille display in particular and you feel it on your fingers, you feel the word, and then you hear it in your ear and you think, hang on, why can the Braille display type this up quicker than I can get the audio to my earbuds? So for that reason, you want to go for something, I would say, that is low latency, and it may not have the best quality. It's not going to be an AirPods Pro 2, right? I mean, there's arguments about how well and how good they are with latency. Actually, they're not bad, but, I don't know if I'd say I'd use that for a Mantis Q40, personally. I opted for a product by a company called TrueFree. Now, it's a Chinese manufacturer, don't know much about them, but what I do know is they cost, now, it was a quarter, no it wasn't, was it? A quarter? No, a third of the price of the Shox Open Fit earbuds that I bought. Now, for those that don't know what these are, so Shox Open Fit, Shox is a company, used to be known as Aftershocks. They were well known for bone conduction headphones. Those earbuds that went round, or headphones, I suppose, that went round your head, little strap round the back of your head and then sat just in front of your ear, and the sound would actually travel through your cheekbones and then into your ears that way. It allowed for open air conversation. You could listen to Jaws. I mean, a lot of blind people loved it because you could have Jaws in your ear, you could have VoiceOver in your ear, and you could still have a conversation with people, which you can't do. If you're in an office environment, it's horrible, right? You constantly take your headphones off. What was that? So, to avoid that, these bone conduction headphones were really good. Some people didn't like them. I didn't love them because, if I'm honest, it was a bit too rattly for me. If the volume got too high, I was either struggling to hear it, or it was so high that my cheeks were rattling and it was tickling me. I didn't like it. So I opted for a new thing they came out with. When they changed their name to Shokz, they dropped the after for whatever reason, and they just call themselves Shokz, SHOKZ. They came up with this product called the Open Fit earbuds. And they have a slightly more, I'd say, sporty design, in the sense that they have this hook that goes around your ear. Nothing that goes around the back of your head anymore. There's just a single, two separate earbuds, but there's a hook that goes around the back of your ear, and then the earpiece kind of sits above and just outside your ear canal. So nothing's in your ear, all right? And that's good. I like that. And the audio from them was very good. Really nice audio. Despite the fact they were open and not in your ear, the bass was good. I enjoyed music on them. I actually quite enjoyed having them on. But the problem was the Bluetooth latency, the lag. And it may have improved since. There have been, I think there's a second edition out. There's an Air version as well. Everyone's doing that now, aren't they? It's all Air and Pro and Max and big and small. Well, they're good. I mean, they are decent. And I don't doubt the newer ones are the same. But again, this lag was my issue. And I'm not buying them again to find out that I've got the same issue. So I opted for something else. And I thought, okay, there must be an equivalent of these out there. A cheaper version of them. And there is. And that's where the TrueFreeze come in. So very similar in terms of design. But the difference is, and look, they're more plasticky. They're maybe not as great feeling. They're not as premium design. Again, who really cares? I mean, for a start, they're not in your ear. They're on your ear. So, as long as you can handle the little hook that goes behind your ear, it doesn't really matter. And of course, they don't fall off that easily either because of that hook. So that's kind of cool. But the audio from them is okay. I'm quite impressed by the audio. I bought the TrueFree 01s first, and I thought they were really good, actually, for listening to JAWS, for using my PC. I thought they were great. And when I got the Mantis Q40, at the time I didn't need earbuds for them, but when the time came that the text-to-speech function was coming into the Mantis, I ended up going out and buying myself a pair of these TrueFree 02s, and I've got to say I was quite impressed by them. Low latency with Bluetooth, so that's good, and the audio was actually quite pleasant. Don't know if I'd sit and listen to music on it, but I thought, you know what, for this, the audio is rich, the voice is rich coming out of the Mantis. I really enjoy using the Mantis with those. So that's my recommendation. They're very cheap. I mean, you're talking $40, $50. Check on InnerSearch, because you'll probably find you can get them. It might be just on Amazon, but I think there might be other retailers doing them, and you might get a bit of a discount there, because different points of the year, they sometimes go down to even half price. So they're not particularly expensive. They come with a little charging case as well, so you have two separate earbuds. You can put them in the little charging case. I don't think I've charged them since I got them because I keep putting them back in the charging case. I will have to at some point, I guess, but the charging on them is actually pretty decent. So that's my recommendation. TrueFree 01 or 02, either or will serve you well for the Mantis Q40, I would say. So hope that helps, Kevin. Let's go to Frank, who's got a question, or more of a comment, I would say.
Hi, I listened to your story about your thoughts and feelings on having a guide dog. I was very interested and could understand your thoughts on was it time for you to have a dog or not. Shaun's comment about how much he could see and on how some days it was like looking through a fog. I am now going through that same situation, as I feel my sight is getting less and less every day. I can no longer see faces or articles in shop windows. I am now on my fourth dog, and every one has been different. I can still remember going for my first dog some 30 years ago. I met my dog on the Sunday, and we got on well after a few minutes, but on the second day I was having a wash and turned round and fell over the dog. I spent the rest of the first 4 weeks taking a large number of painkillers, but it was worth it. People I meet on the street can always remember the dog's name but forget mine, but who cares? I still use my long cane and find that when I'm using it, people do not notice me so much and don't speak when they pass. But when I have the dog, I find that people who I don't even know say hello when passing. I could tell some funny stories about me and my dogs, but it would take far too long. The only one that stands out for me was when I was out with friends at a pub while waiting to be served. There was a lady before me with a very short dress on. I could see it then. All of a sudden, she let out a very loud scream and looked at me as if I'd done something wrong. My very large black dog had touched her very nice leg with his wet nose. All I could do was point at the dog, and she burst out laughing and gave the dog a very large cuddle. I wish I had been the dog at that point. Keep up the commentary about your training when it starts. Happy days, Frank.
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, no update at the moment, I'm afraid. I am through to stage 2, I guess. So next stage for me is to get an assessment by the guide dogs team, and then we'll know what's happening from there. You know, it's such a difficult... It's a difficult journey, isn't it, to go down the route of getting a guide dog, to even think about getting a guide dog. And it's, you know, for a lot of people, it's about the commitment. It's about, will I be out enough? Will I be able to get out and walk the dog and, you know, attend to the dog's needs enough and effectively? I'm not really worried too much about that. I think for me, the reason that I've kind of got to this point is ultimately because of the tremor. And, you know, I've tried using my cane in the other hand, and this is the advice from the doctors and the neurologists, just use your other hand. And I'm like, yeah, try writing with another hand. How does that work for you? You know, it takes time to learn it, right? So I'm not going to be as effective using my cane if I'm using it in my right hand as I would be with my left hand, but it causes me so much pain. So it means I don't go out as much. And so you have this kind of yin and yang thing going on. You know, you're trying, I want to go out, but I'm, you know, conscious of, like, if I go out today, I'll have 2 days worth of pain to deal with. And it's not the worst pain in the world, but it's not fun either. And so I have to consider that, you know, so everything's considered. And so that's why I thought maybe it's time. And look, I have a lot of hope, as you know, because I've talked about it many times, about Glide from Glidance. And I have lots of hope about this device and, you know, could it be the solution? Because ultimately it's similar in the way you hold or deal with a harness with a guide dog, right? You just hold it in your hand. You don't have to, you know, hold it firmly or, you know, move it from left to right. The harness stays still at the side of your body. So, you know, same with the Glide. That's exactly how it works. I know you arguably can use it in different ways, but the way it works is it's a slightly different approach, right? So I feel more comfortable with something like that idea rather than the cane. I think I could, you know, get out more. I could enjoy life a bit more without having the fear of the pain. So that's good. That would be really good. If Glide was here today and it lived up to all the hype and expectation, then I probably wouldn't go on the list or it wouldn't stay on the list. That's kind of where I'm at, right? Because I would probably rather use Glide because to me it's the, you know, I often say it's the guide dog with the plug, right? You can plug it in at night and, you know, that's it. Forget about it. But I just don't know. I have to kind of balance up. Well, hang on a minute. You know, there's a 2-year waiting list to get a guide dog. If I'm on the list, at least there's a chance I can get there. And if Glide turns out not to be the thing I need, then, you know, at least I've kind of started on the other path. So it's a lot you have to weigh up, isn't it? It's a lot of thinking you have to do, a lot of planning. As blind people, we always have to plan everything within a, you know, within an inch of its life. I was meeting someone for coffee the other day, and they suggest, I always go to the same coffee shop. I'm kind of like, it's a bit like this thing I've often said, you know, blind people always order the burger in restaurants, you know, because you know there's likely to be a burger, you know you're going to be okay. You don't really have to look at the menu and try and, you know, figure all this out. You can just, I'm going to eat, I'll be okay, I know what I'm getting. And it was the same with the thing, when I meet people in town, I tend to meet them in the same coffee shop. And I'm sure they think I love this coffee shop, and it's not a bad coffee shop, it's nice. But it's very close to where my bus pulls in. I know where it is, I can get to it easily. I feel comfortable in it. I know the layout of it. The staff are very friendly. They're very nice. And, you know, it's a high turnover of staff. It's a chain coffee shop, so it's not like the same people all the time. But some people have got to know me. So that's nice. And, you know, I think, you know, when someone comes along and says to you, as they did on this particular occasion, hey, can we meet somewhere else? I've got this. There's a really other wonderful cafe over here. It really throws you, doesn't it? Because you're kind of like, oh, my God, now I have to figure out what this place is. And you know, I could jump a taxi, but that feels like I've failed because I think, well, hang on a minute. You know, I've got all these tools, and in particular, I was going to use the WeWalk cane to help me get there. And in the end, they just turned around and said to me, oh, let's just meet where we originally said. And you're like, really? Through all this mental gymnastics just to get to, you know, like, okay, how am I going to get there? I'll need to set up the route. I'll need to check the route first, figure out if I know how to get there because I have no idea. You know, oh, I'll use the cane. Will I use the WeWalk cane? Will I use this? Will I try this? Will I try and use a map to learn how the route is first? And then someone said, oh, we'll just change the... And, you know, and it's like, that's the joy of being sighted is you can just go a place. I think we'll go here. Or why don't we just go there? It's great, isn't it? You can just do that. But you can't do that when you're blind. You've really got to think it through a lot more. There's a lot more involved in it. And I don't want to sound like I'm complaining about it, but, you know, it's true. You know, it's true. There's just so much more involved in it. And it's the same with the guide dog. There's a lot of thoughts and process, not just a simple case of, as I've had friends say, just get a dog. Yeah, it doesn't really work like that, yes, it does. You can decide and you can go ahead and you can apply and you can be accepted and you can get a dog. Yeah, absolutely. That's right. That is the path of travel. But it's everything on the road. It's everything in that journey you got to think about. And that's the bit that people don't always realize. But anyway, I'll let you know how it goes. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate the message and the rather funny guide dog story. I've had some similar stories like that. I could tell you some, but I'd probably be taken off the air. One in particular I'm thinking about right now, which actually we didn't broadcast on this show. We broadcast on a different show, on the old show, actually. And it kind of caught me by surprise because I hadn't heard the voicemail first. It was a very funny story. I'll maybe bring it out one day and share it with you once I've checked in with Mr. F. Let's go to Leannda before we go to our conversation with Paul Martz.
Hi, Stephen and Shaun. Thanks once again for another wonderful show. Absolutely made me smile about the people telling the guide dogs directions. Never heard anything like that before in my life. And also the tips on cane use being under care and feeding. I wonder if it's to do with blind children, maybe, and it's tips on, start from basic cane training from the start. Maybe that's why it's under that section. Yep. And interesting, Stephen, the way the taxi driver said to you, are you just partially sighted then? I think that was a bit rude. I don't mind anybody asking about my blindness because else they'll never, learn anything. And it's sometimes for sighted people, I had enough to approach us anyway. So, I don't mind anybody asking questions. I know some people do. But there's a way in how you can say things, isn't there? I mean, that driver could have said to you, well, are you partially sighted then? Or can you, can you see a little bit or what, out of interest? But to say, are you just partially sighted? I'm hoping that he wasn't trying to offend by saying blind. I was with a support worker yesterday who's just doing a degree in nursing, and we were filling something in about illness and any illnesses or disabilities, and I said, I'm totally blind. And he said, is that the way you should put it now then? I said, actually it isn't. I said, but if I put severely sight impaired, I said, the place may think I can see a little bit. Yeah. And I didn't want to give them, wrong information. I said years ago it was always said as totally blind. I think there's too much on the language. But I think sometimes some of the phrases they use, it's hard to distinguish what they actually mean. So anyway, that's that. So as I say, thanks once again for a wonderful show, and I look forward to the next one.
Thanks, Leannda. Appreciate it. Honestly, I could do a show on that topic alone, but we must move on. And up next, we're going to hear from Paul Martz. Shaun Preece is back with us as he joins us for the interview we recorded earlier in the week with Paul Martz talking all about the accessible Rubik's Cube. That's on the way.
This is Double Tap. We'll be right back.
Double Tap thanks Pneuma Solutions for supporting this podcast and for their continued commitment to digital accessibility. Pneuma Solutions is behind some of the most powerful accessibility tools out there, all designed by blind developers who understand the real-world challenge of inaccessible tech. Whether it's Remote Incident Manager or RIM, which lets you give or receive fully accessible remote tech support across PC and Mac, or Scribe, which turns inaccessible meeting documents into screen reader-friendly files instantly, Pneuma is solving real problems with smart, usable tools. They're not just building products, they're building independence. And now, to celebrate our new partnership, Pneuma is offering something special to the Double Tap community. 10 free community support subscriptions for Remote Incident Manager and 10 subscriptions to Scribe for Documents. It's your chance to experience accessible tech support and real-time document remediation. Subscribe to our newsletter at doubletaponair.com/subscribe to enter for a chance to win. Hey Shaun, we've got a newsletter.
Letter with news from Double Tap?
Yes, a letter of news, which I think you need to read, my friend, to keep up to date with what is going on.
I know, I do need to find out what's going on, and this is a great way to do it.
Well, it is, because in the newsletter, you're going to get access to all of our stories, all of our coverage of all the big tech news stories, but also all of the conversations, the interviews we've been having, and even looking back at some great archival content as well, because we've been doing this for a little while.
A long time, yes, and even some exclusive content just for the newsletter subscribers.
That's right, and if you're a keen listener to Double Tap on podcast and YouTube, you might even find some exclusive codes in there as well for your shopping delights. It's not just going to be Stephen that's buying things around here, you know. Check out our newsletter. You can subscribe to it right now by going to doubletaponair.com/subscribe.
That's doubletaponair.com/subscribe.
Get in touch with Double Tap. Email feedback@doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. And now you can send an audio or video message to us on WhatsApp. That number is 1-613-481-0144.
Okay, so let's now play our interview with Paul Martz that Shaun and I did earlier in the week, talking to him about the accessible Rubik's Cube.
Well, thank you, Stephen and Shaun. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and I believe you are a fellow RPer, is that right?
Hey, RP Unite. Yes, RP Strong.
RP Strong, RP Unite.
That's correct. I was diagnosed when I was 13 years old, and just to give you a hint on my age, that was all the way back in 1976. So I had very mild symptoms at the time, and when the eye doctor told me that I was losing my eyesight, and I looked around his office and saw everything there, that came as quite a surprise to me, yeah.
It's very true. Yeah, I think I had the sit-down talk, I believe it was with my parents around 13. They said, "You're going to lose your sight," which was incredibly brave, by the way. I don't know if I'd have the courage to do that with my child, but they did. But I didn't actually lose it till quite recently, into my late 40s. So all that time worrying about it, I think I was, mentally affected long before the sight affected me.
I think being mentally prepared is very useful if you're gradually losing your eyesight. But being mentally affected, that doesn't really sound as good, Shaun.
No, it doesn't. But it is true, though. That constant fear of what's to come actually was a lot worse. I've said it many times. When I actually lost a lot of sight during lockdown and basically, lost all my remaining sight. I've got light perception. It was kind of a relief. I know it sounds so strange, but it was because, hey, I'm finally here. It's fine.
Yep, I can relate to that, definitely. Yeah.
And Paul, have you lost all your vision now? Is all the vision gone?
So I'm down to light perception now. I can see that there's light coming in the window, but it would be dangerous for me to make assumptions about exactly which window that is. So.
Yeah. And even if it is a window, right? Because that's the other thing. You can obviously, you're seeing light. Obviously, contextually where you are, but, you could mistake that somewhere else.
It could be a bright TV screen for all I know.
Yeah,
contextual sight. I like that phrase. We should coin that one, Stephen Scott.
That's what I always say to my neighbours when people say to me, when I shout hello, how do you know it's me? And I say, well, you're shouting from that direction over there.
Yeah.
That's where your house is. So contextually, I know that's you. And of course, the thing is, I've got that wrong because I often shout hello and it turns out it's not that neighbour because it's another neighbour visiting that neighbour.
Never use names. That's the old trick.
Hi, that's it. Yeah.
Hello, mate.
That's right. It is interesting because the journey of vision loss, which it seems with RP you go through for such a long time, it's something that, it's not that you're, I guess you never really get a chance to rest on it, do you? Because it's always changing. There's always a degradation over years, decades.
That's exactly correct. That was totally my experience. In my late teens, early 20s, I found out that night blindness was going to make it difficult for me to interact with people socially. and sent me into a bit of depression, quite honestly, because I realized how it was going to impact my ability to be part of society. And then in the 30s, of course, is when I started picking up a cane and using that in the workplace. So there's Paul, yet another outsider. Can't see at night. Now he's walking with a cane, and I felt very excluded from society. But at the same time, I knew that I was taking positive steps towards remaining productive, and it was the right thing for me to do, to pick up the cane at that time, even though it seemed a little early.
That's good for you. I've got to admit, I never ever took those steps. I never learned Braille when I had the chance. I never picked up that cane until I stood all over Stephen and he made me.
Threw a cane at him and said, please stop hanging onto my backpack. My back can't take it.
I've never stopped. But the point is, I've never took those proactive steps until it actually happened and I needed to.
Until you needed to, right. And that's the way it is for a lot of people. I think that I waited quite a long time until I learned Braille. I started learning Braille about 10 years ago. But for me, that was the right time. And I think whenever you learn it, it's probably the right time for you. You have to have your mind in the game to learn Braille. Yeah. And my mind was in the game. I was ready for it, and I jumped right in to the deep end. And I love Braille. Braille's awesome.
I mean, my experience of it was kind of different in that sense. I was told when I was a child that my vision would never change. So the condition I have, optic nerve hypoplasia, is essentially the optic nerve not fully developing. And they threw in some nystagmus and some color blindness and some photophobia just for fun.
For free?
And, mixed it all up. Yeah, I got like buy one, get 3 free. It was great. And it was interesting because I kind of grew up on that premise of nothing will change. And then when it did change, and it wasn't entirely due to the conditions I have, there were other health issues, but that led to further sight loss. That meant that I was in a position where I had to relearn. And very quickly I was working in an organization for blind people who were all, around me, those who were blind were using JAWS and using screen readers and reading Braille and doing all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I would kind of watch with interest as they did this, thinking in my mind, maybe I should learn some of this. You never know what the future holds, right? I mean, I could get glaucoma, or I could get an age-related condition like macular degeneration. I may need to learn this stuff.
Keep it light, will you?
No, but it's true though, because you do think about it. It's like because when the way I was always told was my eyes were born at 50 years old.
Yeah, so
which is also so was me. Yeah, so was I. Born at 50 years old. I was the only kid at school that I hated children. Even then, I hated kids, and I was one. But it was like my eyes were born at 50, and they said, that means that over time your eyesight may get worse, but earlier. So this is all in my mind. And then I thought, I really need to learn this. And then 2017 comes along, bang, that's it. Suddenly I'm in a position where I can't use a computer anymore, can't see the screen. And I'd gone from being a very techie guy to all of a sudden not being able to do very much in terms of tech and having to sort of jump right into screen readers. And it's why I say to people now, when asked, when should I start? As soon as possible. Mm-hmm. And listen, I know it's easy to say because we could all say this, couldn't we? We could all say, yeah, I could have done it earlier. But, maybe you didn't want to because you wanted to live your life. You wanted just to live life as it was. You didn't want to have it taken over by learning all this new tech.
Isn't it? You use what you've got for as long as
any sight will do me. I'll take any, hind or otherwise.
I'll have 20/20. Thank you.
With RP, at least, I was able to ease into screen reader usage. So I was introduced to JAWS in 1996, very early in JAWS development, and very early in my vision loss too. I was impaired, but I didn't quite need a screen reader yet. But just that little bit of experience with JAWS, and I said, yeah, that's not quite for me. But I did realize that I was going to be very dependent on the keyboard. And so instead of mousing over to the B button to make text bold, I started switching over to Control B, Control I for italics, Control S to save. And so I would say that I eased into screen reader usage and keyboard only usage so that when I did finally have to make that transition to a screen reader, it was not all that difficult.
I would argue it's just a power user. Paul. That's all you are. Paul, the power user. Keyboard shortcuts are used by power users because it's just so much quicker most of the time.
Thank you.
There you go.
But I do hear that I had a little birdie tell me that you've given up on Windows.
Right.
So what are you using? I'm guessing it's a Mac. I'm guessing it's not a Chromebook, is it?
So I've been a Mac user for about 10 years now.
Well done. Welcome to I like getting smart guests on the show. I like smart people.
I might go back a little bit, and I'll tell you why. Right. It's MS Word on the Mac with VoiceOver is not the most accessible experience, and I would like to have a platform that's going to let me get to all of MS Word's features, especially track changes and comments, in a way that's actually usable and not a struggle every time I try to use it. So yeah, I think there's a Windows 11 laptop in my future. Wish me luck on the return journey.
Just don't go down the ARM route. That's all I'd say at this point.
What?
Stick to... But actually, forget Intel because they're finished. Go to AMD.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, do we need a breaking news jingle there, Stephen Scott? Our Intel finished.
I'm just going by what the Intel CEO said just a couple of weeks ago. Where he was like standing up on stage saying, we can't catch up. Basically, AMD have won the war. We should just sit down and forget about it. I don't think he said those exact words. I am slightly paraphrasing. Although that's exactly 100% what he meant.
Paul, you mentioned it was 10 years ago you switched over to the Mac. Was there a reason for that? Was that anything to do with the iPhone and VoiceOver and the whole excitement over that?
Well, there was a lot that was going on in my eyesight about 10 to 12 years ago. So, and my career as well. I had been a independent software engineer, bespoke development, as you say in the UK, contract programmer, as we say in the US. And my last contract had ran out. And I realized that I was not doing too well with zoom text, magnification, and contrast colors, high contrast colors, as I was before. It was time for me to learn to finally make the switch over to screen readers. So I decided to simply give up programming at that point. I was well into legal blindness at that point. I qualified for the U.S. Health and Human Services Act disability payments, and I opted to start receiving those and focus on functioning as a blind person. So your question, though, is why did I switch from Windows to Mac, right? Well, I compared JAWS, which I had already learned a little bit. I had learned NVDA as well, and I learned VoiceOver. And I'd already learned VoiceOver a little bit on the iPhone as well. And so it seemed to me, since I was going to be an iPhone user, and you're very perceptive of you, Shaun, yes, it did have something to do with the iPhone, I decided that it would be best to just use VoiceOver across my collection of devices. So yeah, that influenced the switch as well. But at the time, I really wanted to be a screen reader omnivore. So I learned as much as I could about JAWS and NVDA so that if I ever had to be in a position where I had to switch back platforms, I would at least be familiar with the concepts.
Wow. See that, Stephen Scott? That's a disciplined mind. You see that?
Excuse me, I am an omnivore. Is that what you said? Omnivore?
I'm going to come on your show if I'm ever feeling depressed and I need encouraging words. Thank you.
There you go. Well, you're an omnivore, and so am I, because I consume considerable amounts of operating systems and screen readers too.
You're just flirty and fickle.
I am.
You are. You're loving Windows at the minute. It's interesting. The reason I say about the iPhone, because at that time, when the 3GS? When the VoiceOver became available, the amount of people that said, I'm so impressed by this that I want to give the Mac a try now. It was huge, right? But also the amount of people said, hang on, this isn't the same at all. And then suddenly went running back to Windows. Because of course it's not. You can't have an OS level system like the Mac, using a simplified VoiceOver like on the iPhone. So, of course, it was different and it's more complicated and things like that. But I still find that people that Apple ecosystem does drag you in. It is just so elegant, isn't it?
It does, and it holds you captive, too. Once you're in, you don't want to leave. You realize all the downsides of leaving. But yeah, you're right. VoiceOver on the iPhone and on the Mac are very different. But it's similar enough to make it more comfortable for me as a user, at least.
I mean, it's interesting. I'd love to get your take on this because I'm as much of a fanboy as I am of the Mac and of Apple, I guess, more generally. I do see the problems. And, I hear a lot of people say when they, especially when they use a Mac, and we're talking here about people who are, they know what they're doing around screen readers. They say, how can anyone use this on a daily basis? It's not great to use every day, right? You go to Windows, and I get it to some degree because I go to my Windows PC, and I think it's all down to experience. If I'm honest, for me, it was the computer I went to first with JAWS when I was losing vision, and what that meant was I was taught to use it without the screen, which kind of worked for me because I can never, for some reason, I just can't see anything on a Windows PC screen. The text has always been tiny. Maybe it's changed, but there was a time where it was a lot smaller and you could barely see a thing on it anyway. I don't know how anyone could see it. But the point was,
monitor, Stephen Scott.
Well, that obviously helps some people, yes. Okay. But my point being that for me, it was, magnification wasn't going to be any use to me. So if I couldn't scale up that text, and even if I could, would it work and all that? So you end up with this, there's a period, a grey area we all kind of face in this sight loss journey where you're jumping between like voice and trying to see the screen the best you can. And so you get to a point where you have to use a screen reader, as I did. I learned the best way was to turn the screen off. And that meant that I can use a PC without a screen. I can shut my laptop lid and just get on with it. Don't feel that way with a Mac for some reason. I don't know why that is. Even though I can't really see the screen that well, I still try and peer at it. I still try to see something on it. And I think that's because I always learned it. And it was visual. It was the first computer I ever learned as a kid. I wonder where you are, Paul, with it. Where do you stand on the accessibility of the Mac and VoiceOver today?
Well, the Mac is very visual. It's very popular with visual artists working in digital media. And look at the new feature they're rolling out this fall, the liquid glass user interface. It's all eye candy. If you've read my posts on AppleVis, then I'm sure you're aware of how I feel about accessibility on the Mac. I don't make any big secret of it. But there's a lot of areas for improvement there. It just feels like it's a feature that they created at some point, and now it doesn't get anywhere near the attention that it needs in order to maintain it. I'm a former software developer. I know that developing a new feature or a new software product is about 20% of the work, and about 80% of it is keeping it running and keeping it bug-free and keeping your users happy. And it seems like I don't want to be too negative, but it's not so bad that I want to leave the Mac. I really don't, except in the case of MS Word, as I already mentioned. I am looking at an alternative platform for that.
It's not so bad, but you're buying a whole new computer to get things done. I mean, I get what you're saying, Paul. I do hear
one
you.
specific use case, though, right? Word processing.
Yes,
what's wrong with Pages, Paul?
Yeah, Pages? I would rather use Google Docs actually than Pages. Yeah, and I'm pretty adept at using Google Docs. In fact, this is one of my things, is I'll find something that's horrendously complicated and kind of underdocumented, and then I'll figure out how it works and maybe write a guide that might help others, or at least serve as notes for me down the road in the future. And I did that with the Google Docs, and you can find that on AppleVis, actually.
Well, I'm going searching for that right after this.
And it's my preferred word processor for many reasons, yeah.
Tell me this, right? Just friend to friend here, Paul, right? How do you get to the menu in Google Docs on the Mac?
So you got to do the VoiceOver pass-through, the VO tab, and then VOF, opens file.
Oh, so you've got to bypass the... Right, okay. I did
VOF,
I was doing that all the time.
VOE for edit, VO tab, VOV for view, VO tab, VOA for accessibility.
Interesting, right.
And is there a way to change that behavior once you gain access to the menu under the accessibility menu, for example, or is it always that way? You've always got to pass through the next command.
I don't know.
Caught you there. Well done. Look into that.
But I'll tell you the truth. What I do is there's another command you can do in Google Docs. I think it's Option/, which opens a search box to let you search the menus. So if you know that you want to turn on suggested edits, then you Option/ and you type the word suggest, and then you arrow through the options, and you'll find Enable Suggested Edits and select it. So you don't even have to use the menus, really.
Oh, that's good. That's interesting.
Can I just say, on the option / which is also what control ? Or control / on Windows. Yeah. That is the keyboard command usually used on websites that give you a list of keyboard shortcuts, right? Why is it that on some of them, it just gives you a long list that it spits out at you at a rate of speed, and you've got to try and listen out for the one you want? There's so many websites I've been on where you can't actually go through that list independently. Or I should say, you can do, but you need to do different review modes and things like that to get through it. It just seems so strange to me, because that's a universal keyboard shortcut, that option / or control /. And yet it doesn't seem the way they present the keyboard shortcut seems to be universal, well, most of the time. Sorry, that's just a little pet hate of mine.
Let's just all cry together, can we? Because
Yes, hold my hand.
In the United States, we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was passed some 30 years ago. And we as a nation took the monumental civil engineering project upon ourselves to put in curb cuts at every crosswalk and every intersection, and wheelchair ramps in every public building, and wheelchair accessible bathrooms in every public building. Just monumental amount of reconstruction and re-engineering went into pretty much our entire country. But for some reason, a handful of software developers, highly trained, highly educated people sitting at a desk, can't make websites accessible.
Why do you think that is? I mean, we've been pondering this quite a lot on the show, and I got rather ranty about it the other day regarding Meta and WhatsApp, and I'll give you my thoughts. You tell me yours. I think a lot of it is to do with the fact that the accessibility team is often in these companies very small. They try their best to put their best foot forward and give advice and advise to the engineers, the developers who are creating the software, but it just doesn't get through, because ultimately it's all about speed of delivery of that particular product. We want to get this app out. That feature can wait till the next run, not realizing that accessibility is at the core. And if accessibility was part of the company's overall structure, overall culture, then we might see improvements there. I said in my rant the other day, why is it Steve Jobs seems to have been the only person to kind of get it? And I say that rather flippantly, because there was a lot of people involved in bringing VoiceOver to the Mac, to the iPhone, to the other products. But when a new Apple product comes out, we know it's going to be accessible. We know there might be bugs, but we know it'll be accessible. What's gone on elsewhere? What's gone wrong elsewhere?
I don't know. You've got a lot of good points there. I think that there's an accumulation of problems. One is, I don't think accessibility is taught in user interface courses in most computer science curriculum in colleges, and it should be. Also,
that's a great point.
I think buildings, when you're putting up a building, there are codes, municipal codes that you must adhere to and you must pass. And when you develop web pages, there are no equivalents. So no one's holding a gun to anyone's head.
As ever, legislation is always the answer, right? But not only making that legislation in the first place, but giving it teeth, so people actually fear breaking that.
Coders like playing in toy boxes, don't they? I mean, they love all this stuff, right? There's tons of tools they can play with and things they can add in and user interface designs. I remember talking to a developer of an app called Just Press Record. I don't know if you know it, Paul, but it's a really fairly popular app. It's kind of probably lost its significance a little bit because voice memos on the iPhone has been very popular for years. But Just Press Record were contacted by a blind guy who said, "Look, this app isn't accessible. I can help you fix this, but there's some things you need to know." And they were just like, "Yeah, tell us everything. This is amazing." And they even designed, like for the Apple Watch, they designed a whole new interface just for VoiceOver users because the interface was very visual for everyone else. And they said, well, when VoiceOver is detected, we'll change it to this model. They had a great time with it. They loved it. And I think a lot of these developers do. They want to create the best product, don't they? You'd think.
Yeah, and the information is out there. We have WCAG, right, the W3 Web Accessibility Guidelines. So the information is out there, and I don't know why developers aren't being more proactive to ferret out this information to improve their products. I think there's a lot of marketing pressure, right? We need a new glitzy feature that's going to get us a headline somewhere, and fixing an accessibility bug does not qualify, sadly.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's like the Sonos story, isn't it? You know, everyone, I think there's a lot of advocates out there for blind people who think that the Sonos accessibility story was the story that everyone was talking about. And in fact, it wasn't. People were talking about the issues that everyone else was having. The mainstream were having issues. And that's what led to the headlines about Sonos and that bad app that came out.
I can't set my alarm anymore. This is a disgrace. Yeah,
Meanwhile, blind people couldn't even use their technology. It was ridiculous. Listen, I want to talk to you about Rubik's Cube because you're a blind cuber. Yes.
That's why I came on your show.
I know that's exactly why 20 minutes ago you arrived here. So what is that the right phrase I'm using? Blind cuber?
That's right. I call myself a blind cuber. Yep. Or a tactile cuber. But let me just tell you how the book came about. Well, first of all, I've been interested in it ever since I was a young kid and the Rubik's Cube was first released. But I was fully sighted back then. It wasn't until 10 years ago that I bought my first tactile cube, and they're very easy to find with a web search. You just go type in tactile cube, and you'll find a lot of shopping results. And there are ways to make them as well, which I'd be happy to talk about as well. So I bought one about 10 years ago, and as I started getting plugged into more and more into the blind community because I was losing my eyesight, I encountered a lot of people who said, oh, yeah, I have one of those. It's scrambled. I never could figure out how to solve it, and it's in a drawer somewhere. And that got into my head and stayed there over time. And then eventually, it wasn't much longer after that my central vision collapsed. And it had been a while since I'd picked up my tactile Rubik's Cube, and I found I was a little bit rusty. So I did some web searches for information as anyone would, and all the information out there is visual. It's videos with audio tracks that say things like, move this from here over to here and turn it like this, this, and this, and then you've solved it, which is not helpful if you're blind. Or it's images and diagrams with arrows that illustrate how to perform the solution. Or even if you find a web page that is text-based, it's not really designed with accessibility on the forefront of the web developer's cerebral cortex, as we have already discussed. So they're difficult to navigate. There's frames with advertisements and all sorts of controls and unlabeled buttons. So I decided, Stephen and Shaun, this is a problem I can solve. I'm going to figure out how to solve the Rubik's Cube again, and not just do that, I'm going to figure out how to speed solve the cube, which is something that I had never done before. And I'm going to write a 100% accessible text-only book that can be read, digested, and consumed with a screen reader or with a Braille display. And that's what my book is. Solve It, the only speed-solving guide for blind cubers.
Wow.
Amazing.
I've got to say, I never solved the Rubik's Cube. I don't think I ever got more than 2 sides.
Shaun, you need my book.
I'm going to get your book. I used to just throw it on the floor and then put it back together, solved. That was the only way I ever did it, and I felt proud of myself.
Hang on, what? You threw it on the floor?
You throw it on the floor and then it all comes to bits, and then you clip in all the little cubes, the smaller cubes.
What, so
back
you
in
cheated?
Place. I cheated, yeah.
Right, okay, I see.
I think Sarah used to peel off the stickers and put them back on. So how fast can you solve it, Paul?
So first, let me say disassembling and reassembling your cube is a very important skill to have. And I cover that in my book, too, because every once in a while you need to clean and lubricate the inside to keep it running smooth. So, yeah, I've got you covered on that.
Hang on, though, Paul. Does that involve smashing it on the floor?
It usually I am a little more subtle with my disassembly strategy than that, but smashing it on the floor might also work.
Yeah. Whatever works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in the realm of how fast, I could throw numbers out, but they're meaningless unless you know context. I will say that when it comes to blind 62-year-old cubers, I'm doing okay.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking, should it take me 3 hours to do it, or are we talking minutes here?
I think once you work your way through the first part of my book, which is a beginner level strategy, and you memorize the steps, and because it's a beginner strategy, they should be pretty easy to memorize, you ought to be able to solve it in under 10 minutes comfortably. Once you work your way through part 2 and you spend a lot more time memorizing a lot more different situations that require their own unique solutions, and you memorize all of those, which is going to take a considerable amount of work. This is not something you go into easily, right? But once you master that, you should be able to get under 2 minutes comfortably, and I have approached 1 minute, but have never quite gotten under a minute. Now, I have blindness slowing me down, obviously, and I'm an old man. Let's admit it. I'm 62.
Here come the excuses, right? Okay.
There is a young college student in Poland named Karolina Put, P-U-T, who's totally blind, and she solves the cube in under 30 seconds in competition.
Wow.
With a judge staring over her shoulder. Yeah.
Hang
That's
on.
amazing.
You
It's
mentioned
remarkable.
we are old men here. Do we
Speak for
need to
yourselves.
do we need to explain what the Rubik's Cube actually is for anyone that doesn't know?
What, seriously? Is that the stage we're at? Is it Gen Z don't know?
I don't know. I think there may be people out there that don't know what it is.
I think you might be right. It was something that took popular culture by storm in the 1980s, but there might be some people who don't know what the Rubik's Cube is. So it is a cube, a little more than 2 inches on a side, maybe 50, 55 millimeters, and fits in the palm of your hand. And it has 6 sides because that's what cubes do. Each side has a unique color. Each side is divided into 9 squares so that layers of the cube can be rotated relative to each other. And after you perform 2 or 3 or a couple dozen rotations, your cube is scrambled and the colors no longer match. So the goal for the sighted person is to unscramble the cube and get all the 6 colors on a side to match again. What we do as blind people is we assign texture markings to each of the cube sides so that we can identify a side by its tactile marking. And then we solve the cube by performing a rotation so that all the tactile markings on a side match. It sounds easy, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it sounds easy.
Does not sound easy at
it's
all.
one of the most confounding puzzles that humankind has ever devised. Yes.
Not if you throw it on the floor, it's easy.
Yeah, no, if you cheat. I mean, it's absolutely fine.
But there are
then.
solutions and there are strategies, and there's actually a lot of them. And this is one of the things that fascinates me most about this puzzle is this is a lifelong learning process. You can, of course, learn how to solve the cube and be done with it, which is what I did for years. But now I've just kind of immersed myself in this entire kind of subculture of speed cubing and all the different approaches and all the different strategies that everyone used, and countless types of solutions, hundreds, dozens. It's amazing. Yeah, it's
Wow,
remarkable.
Okay. So the book is available on...
It's just what I was going to ask. I want that book.
You can get it through RNIB, through CNIB,
yes.
the US as well?
I would love to get it available through RNIB and CNIB Sella, I believe it's called now. And so please request it. Ask for Solve It, the only speed solving guide for blind cubers by Paul Martz. And they will put pressure on, I understand they work with National Library Service in the U.S., and I've been putting pressure on NLS as well. So far, they haven't been knocking on my door. I guess there's not a lot of blind people who want to solve the Rubik's Cube, but we're going to change that. We're going to start a
quite right.
blind cubing army here. Right?
Starting a new trend. It's going to be great.
So the way to get the book now is it is available for sale for $2 or $3, depending on where you get it from. And if you go to the official website, tactilecuber.com, you'll find a link that will take you to various retailers, booksellers that you can purchase it from. And I believe that this is something that every blind person already has the skills to do, because what it takes is memory, which is something we use all the time. We memorize our routes. We don't have the freedom to set something on a counter before we go out the door, knowing that we'll see it with our eyes so that we'll grab it, right? We have to remember what we're bringing with us all the time. And it also exercises your tactile sensitivity, which is something that blind people use a lot. And so this is a puzzle that will exercise those skills, and it's also highly portable. So if you're taking public transport somewhere, I know you want to listen to an audiobook or a podcast, but here's yet another way for you to exercise your brain and keep yourself stimulated while you're taking that long train ride somewhere.
I love that you're thinking about this as a new tool for people, because, you're right. I mean, it's interesting. You put it out there and people say, well, I never really thought about that before. Actually, that's the point, isn't it? That this is something you could do, and this could be a fun pastime. I can imagine a lot of people will be interested in this. That's why I was so keen to talk to you about it, because I thought it's very different.
I think there's lots of people out there that'll think or don't even know that there's a tactile version out there, because I recently got hold of one of those, and I was, I didn't even know this. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, I think one side had circles, the other one had dots, things like that. But yeah, absolutely, you can get tactile ones.
Exactly. Let me talk about the tactile cubes just briefly. If you can buy one, like I said, you can do a tactile cube web search, and you can buy one from Amazon or wherever. You can take a standard cube designed for sighted people, and you can use bump dots to make it tactile. The problem with that is the bump dots, you don't really have a lot of control over them, and you're going to burn through a lot of bump dots too. It's because it's going to take 9 dots on 5 sides. You can leave the 6th side blank. So you're going to burn through your bump dots pretty quick. There is a new store that is opened, and they contacted me because they opened their store just about the same time my book came out, called texturecube.com, and they purchase a quality high-end speed cube designed for sighted people, and then they apply very comfortable, very pleasant to your fingertips, tactile markings to the sides, and the results are quite nice. It's a little bit a little more expensive. There are lesser expensive options available, but you should take a look at texturecube.com as one option.
Paul, come back soon, because honestly, this has been so interesting, and I'm so glad that you came on today. But I want to geek out with you some more, so you got to come back, okay?
I think that we could just talk about accessibility and programming and computers and fill 2 or 3 episodes, you guys.
Oh, easily, yeah. Well, especially programming, because I know, Shaun, that was something you were into back in the day.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the accessibility of modern day programming. I know you said you're giving it up, but I'm sure you're keeping an eye on it, right?
I have given it up. I'm kind of following it a little, but mostly my gig these days is writing. Excuse me. So the Tactile Cube book, but what I really enjoy doing is writing science fiction short stories, and that might be my new second career now that I'm done with programming.
Okay.
But I really did enjoy talking to both of you.
Thank you so much.
Listen, if he keeps this up, he's going to get the Inspiration Award.
Yes.
That's the thing you really want, isn't it, when you're blind? Do you want that award?
Maybe.
Well, okay, fine. You can win it then. But listen, Paul, you're our inspiration. Oh, that's cheesy and a little bit patronizing. But Paul, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I love what you're doing with the book. It sounds wonderful. Let's make sure that CNIB are hearing about this.
Thanks, you guys.
To get it into the Sailor Library and to others as well. Thanks so much for coming on, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks for helping me promote the book. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
And that is it for today. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. Really appreciate it. All your feedback, all your comments. Shaun, get well soon, my friend. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.